Hello, and welcome to Unit 2 of Week 4 of the Online Result-Based Monitoring and Evaluation delivered by Cloneshouse, Nigeria. This is Unit 2. We just concluded Unit 1 for the fourth week ongoing, and Unit 1 actually focused on, we introduced ourselves to evaluation, then looking at the purpose of an evaluation, the types of evaluation that we have, and most importantly, criteria for evaluation. In essence, looking at our evaluation questions. And we're going to be picking back on how we finished in Unit 1. And this takes us to a very important aspect of the profession of evaluation, which is the design of the evaluation itself. So some people had argued, some people had argued that monitoring and evaluation is an art, and we cannot agree more that monitoring and evaluation is an art. So, and this will show you why it's an art. So you need to put on your markers and every other thing, put on your art caps and dive into it. So we'll be discussing evaluation designs in a few minutes, and what we expect to get out of this session is that we should be able to explain which aspect should be included in an evaluation design. We should be able to identify challenges and needs involved in designing evaluation vis-a-vis the type of evaluation you're actually conducting. And what we mean by type is either it's ex ante, which is before a program start, and ex post after it has ended, or maybe the formative, the process evaluation, or an outcome evaluation, or maybe the economic evaluation, whichever one. So in any one of that, you need to think about how you design your evaluation. And in a minute, I will tell us what we mean by the design itself. We expect that at the end of this session, we should be able to explain the role of impact and the assessment with regard to ex post evaluation. So, which in essence, we're talking about impact assessment. Yes, just introducing us to what we actually mean about impact assessment. I know that a whole lot of us use that word, or say, oh, this is the impact of our project, or we should conduct an impact assessment. So, here we will dive into what this means. So, in this session, I will tell us what we mean by evaluation design. Also discuss the logic of the counterfactual in impact assessment, so we're able to know exactly what impact assessment is. Then we discuss the three types of design that we have. So and with that, we'll wrap it up. There's a task we're supposed to conclude at the end of this course session unit as well, which is that yes, in your case study, you're supposed to pick your case study again. It's interesting that you've been working on that case study you picked right from week 1. So and that's how we have designed this training, that you're able to work on a particular case study right from week 1 to week 5. So you're supposed to pick a case study and you're supposed to describe your evaluation design for that case study. So yes, let's get along and discuss what evaluation design is. Yes, I've been talking about evaluation design. So the three important things that is inside an evaluation. So if you're going to carry out an evaluation, there are three key things which you need to think about. Some people might call this the methodology that was used. Fine. But in terms of design, they are also the same thing. But there are three components of the design itself. And I mean, if you pick every request for proposal, you might actually find what the purpose of the evaluation is. You might find what the criteria of the evaluation is. You might find the type of evaluation that is supposed to be carried out. But most what you would not find is the design of the evaluation by the evaluator. So this is where your skills are now needed to tell the commissioner how you're going to go about conducting the evaluation. So there are three key things. Which units will you collect data from? So is it at the individual level, which might mean individual might mean so in a school project, for instance, do you in a project? So for example, let me see what we can use. Yes, so the school feeding program, for example, if you say that you're going to be collecting data from pupils, so that's the individual level, or the teachers of those pupils, that's the individual level. But if you now so the other unit you can also collect data from is from the school itself. So which means you can have different schools, you'll be collecting data from different schools and not the teachers or the or the pupils. So which means your inferences will focus on the school level. You will be comparing your data collection across different schools. That's what it means. So you need to decide which unit. So for instance, the chlorine distribution kit. So you have to decide, are you collecting from households or you want to collect your data from individuals, which means your results, your indicators will focus on households and not individuals. So you need to think about this. Some also look at district level, whereby you compare several districts that that an intervention has been done. So you can think about that. So that's what we mean by the unit in which you're going to collect your data from. The second component is at what point should you collect the data. This is almost the same thing as what you get from the type of evaluation you are conducting. So what we mean is that when we say at one point, so this means that when exactly would you be collecting the data? Is it at the beginning of the program or at the end of the program? Your design will determine when and where you're supposed to collect it. So there are some designs that allows you to collect at the beginning of the evaluation and also at the end of the evaluation. There are some that just allows you to collect data only at the end of the program. So when the project has been concluded. So you need to think about that. There are some that allows you to collect every year for example, in a 6 years project. So at the end of every year in a 6-year project. So that's what we refer to as at one point. The third component of an evaluation design is the condition in which you're going to collect the data. So which in essence means that in how have you conditioned the beneficiaries, your target or your evaluation target? So in which condition would the school pupils be, or the primary health care center? Would there be a treatment group or a control group? That's what we mean. That's what we mean by the condition. And I mean, these three components are very important. You need to explain it in your evaluation design for your commissioner, especially in your proposal. Yes, that's quite important. In some minutes, we will discuss some of the evaluation designs, but it's important to know that these three components are what we refer to as the methodology, and this tree can or will definitely um, will definitely inform your commissioner about the validity. Remember in week 3 we discussed validity, which is what you're actually using to measure. What instrument are you using to measure? So here comes the validity. So here we'll be talking about internal validity and external validity. Don't forget that we also said validity is related to reliability, which reliability means that it means your measure or the result of what you've gotten should be constant at every time you do the same kind of um, analysis. That's what it means. So here we'll be discussing the validity of intervention and its effect as it concerns the evaluation design. And it is based on this validity that some people prefer one design against the other. And it is because of this that people can measure the impact of a program to a certain degree than another one. So this is quite key, and just for you to hold on a bit and think about this. Let's take a look at this. Let me see. We can use blue. So let's look at this. I hope this can not conversant with this Jamboard. So let's take a look at this and use one of the cases. So for example, the entrepreneurs that are into palm oil production, assuming your objective is to increase the income of these entrepreneurs, right? And so when you started the program, so this is I, which is impact, right? And this is time. We can call it change anyways. Yes, we can call this change in income, right? So, and this is time. So, assuming when you started the program, this was where the income this is where. And let's see this. You came in at this point, right? We call it T naught. When you came in, the income started going this way, and oops, that's too much. You realize this is happening. So yes, let's say so this was year 1 of the project, and by year 4 you already have this. So I mean, the income came this way. So what do you think? So is this an impact of your project? So this question is one of the questions in your questions. So think about this very well, if this is actually, if it is impact or not. I mean, there's no yes or no answer. So, I mean, just you can have, we're going to have it as a discussion. So, I mean, but this is how the lifetime of a program looks like, right? Income is here, but you're thinking of, yeah, when you came in here, you said, oh, we had maybe 2% income to this smallholder, to these entrepreneurs that are into palm oil production with our programs that we're putting in. So, and then, I mean, you were expected to be here at year 4. So now you're evaluating. And so is this an impact? Just something to think about and use it for discussion. So we can go back to, so I mean, that's the logic of, so we can think about this as the logic of impact, right? Like there's a factual state, which is actually the state, the factual state is the state of our theory of change, that there will be a change in variable from go back to the Jamboard. Yeah, there will be a change in variable, right? T0 to T1. That's the factual state, and I'm actually explaining the logic as explained by Rubin causal model, which you can check out. So he's the one that said, so I mean, there's that state of an object in an outcome variable y after receiving that treatment, right? So it means that these people, the social enterprises in those states, they receive that treatment, and yeah, there's supposed to be a change in variable, right? So, and that this change in variable is actually the factual state. There is the other counterfactual state, so which is the state of an object in an outcome variable y under the same conditions as in the factual without having received the treatment. So same set of people participating, but they did not receive any intervention at all. So the difference in that is actually what we refer to as the causal effect. So in essence, what we're saying is, yes, so you need to have a set of people in a particular program, and this set of people, you're supposed to make sure that yes, they get the treatments, they are being provided. So one can quickly, so I'm going to take this out, yeah, because we're not, this is for the exercise we're supposed to do, right? So let's use another illustration. So I mean, we could have these children in this community. So I'm just going to represent them with this. So the school-based, so let's use the school feeding program, which is, I mean, it's all over the world. I mean, most countries does that, giving lunch pack to children. So I mean, if your objective is to improve, make these children healthy, improve their nutrition status. So I mean, this set of people, you provided them with lunch pack in this school. So could be in the same school, depending on the unit you want to collect data from. Could be in the same school, actually, could be in several schools. So you have this that you provided lunch pack, and we call them T. Then you have another set of So I'm just using this as an illustration of the tokens, which could be so we have this so do my my graph the other time. So this and this. So let me try and draw this in a way that is good. So we expect that there will be improvement, and the improvement will be as much as this, right? So let me use the color again. Boom. You have this, right? And perhaps for the control group that did not participate, they participated but did not get launch back actually. It's red. Let's say theirs was like this. So I will now erase this. And I mean, this can definitely go down. So what this model is talking about, what Rubin was talking about, is that the impact is actually the difference. So let's take another color. Is the difference is so the difference between the average mean of these two is actually the impact. That's so and what that means is this blue color is what we call is what we call the factual state, and this red color is what we refer to as the counterfactual state. So the difference between the two is actually what we refer to as, yes, so we say that's the causal effect. Remember your causal diagram, or yes, so which we did in week 1. So this is what we're talking about. So these changes between these two is actually what we refer to as impact, and that's what we refer to as impact assessment. So I hope we're able to get the gist. And when you are talking about impact assessment, this is what you're talking about. So in essence, you need so just to explain it better, so these two set of pupils are actually of the same characteristics. Yes, they should be of the same characteristics. So perhaps they are both in so this could be they are all in grade 3, for example. So that could be characteristics. You could go further now doing randomization, which we did in week 3, if I'm correct, where you start doing maybe stratification, or you want to do a simple random. Since they are all in primary 3, it might necessarily mean they are all eligible. They all take the same kind of subjects. So I mean, you could think about this as, yes, improving their maybe numerical skills, for example, numeracy skills, and you did some interventions, and yes, these people did not get the intervention. These people got, and you got this, and for those that did not get, yes, this was their average mean. Let's say in terms of results now. So the difference between both is what we refer to as impact. The key thing is that they are of the same characteristics. They must be of the same characteristic at most. Same. Don't forget, I said grade 3 pupils are all involved, so which means they're eligible. So let's go on to think about. So that's just the so like you said, the difference in the outcome variable of the factual state and counterfactual states is the causal effect. That's the impact, actually. So this is the basis of the evaluation design that we're going to be talking about in some minutes. And like I said, we have 3 types: the experimental design, the quasi-experimental design, and the non-experimental design. You can decide to use whichever one you think is suitable for you. So what's the experimental design? In the experimental design, yes, I mean, you always have the treatment and the control group. So like I said, it allows you to have these 2 set of people. So you don't just focus. So I mean, in your program, you want to think about another set of people that you will not provide the same. You will not provide that program to. So I mean, so for example, if you're going to run a program, so let's use community level, for example. In community A, you're going to be providing. So let's use the chlorine distribution. Let's say there are 2 districts, District A and District B. In District A, you might want to provide the chlorine kit, while in District B, you will not provide the chlorine kit. By the way, you must make sure that the characteristics of the households that you're going to be providing these to is almost the same thing. Number one, one is you might think about is, yes, their poverty level is almost the same thing in terms of the household. You can use, so once you know that, then you could use a simple random system whereby you use lottery to do that, since they are of the same category. The poverty level is of the same category. So in essence, you cannot compare people living in Maitama with those living in Kuchinguru. No, so it has to be the same. It has to be Zuba and Suleja, because they are of the same. People living there might be of the same characteristics. So that's just what we're trying to say. So that's what an experimental design is all about. And the units could be, yes, the unit you're collecting data for could be at the individual level, could be at the community level. You will collect data at the beginning of the program and also at the end of the program. Yes, in order for you to make comparison, and also that you have a control group, which is you have a control group and you have the treatment group as well. So that's what experimental, and we have we have 2 types of it. I'm sure we might be familiar with clinical trials. So this was something that was that started from clinical trials, and I mean, let's see if we can get clinicaltrials.gov, in which, I mean, this is in the medical field. This is what they use where they're trying to test drugs, right? When there's a new vaccine, just like everybody is doing currently for COVID-19. So I mean, if you run through clinicaltrials.gov, you're going to see a large bunch of clinical trials that might actually be going on currently. So I mean, you can see it. This drug to combat COVID-19, there's a trial going on, and you see the universities that are involved. So I mean, and what they do is, yes, try to find um, people to enroll in such kind of programs. So I mean, and they normally call for people to enroll. They might need like 40 people. So I mean, an example is this, which I actually picked a screenshot of a clinical trial. So you could invite 200 people, and perhaps the 200, for them to have the same characteristics. So I mean, you can think about their age. Yes, I need people from 18 to 45, those that are tall, or 18 to 45 that are blacks or black American, um, and because they are likely to be of the same characteristics to an extent, um, you provide them with the drug that is being tested, and also provide them with what we call a placebo. A placebo is, so you think it's a drug, but it's not a drug. Actually, they do that so that you won't know which one is the actual drug. Actually, so that you would not influence the outcome. So some people are given the placebo, and those are the ones that are the control group, which means they are not given the drugs, right? While there is that treatment group which are actually giving the real drug that is to be tested. So the outcome is also measured just like in this manner, just to see if the drug becomes potent, right? Or if it's potent, if it's going to work. And I mean, these two groups would have the ailment. So it's just like the coronavirus. I mean, those that have been tested currently are actually people that are already positive to it, and they're calling for volunteers for them to come and volunteer. I mean, so they could get up to 200, 300, 500. You could see, and I mean, you might read the story about Gilead on the new on the drug that has been in existence. I mean, doing clinical trials all around the world. I mean, you could get a multi-country clinical trials in several countries. So, randomized control trials borrowed that kind of design in evaluation. I mean, in evaluation, you cannot test people in that way in terms of programs. So, but it's been done in another way. So, I mean, we are not using drug. It's not the medical field. So, you have to find every way to be able to randomly assign people. So, so that's in the what I first explained in the medical field is in the laboratory, but now we're talking about in the field communities. So, giving community A particular program, and not giving community B, but watching both communities for a longer period of time. So, um, and I'm going to quickly explain that with, so I have this illustration from work I did in 2016. Um, so, um, so this is about providing, so like an handbook for high school students, and the handbook actually is about their numerical skills. So trying to mathematics. So the essence of the project is to see how they can produce handbooks that can allow high school students to understand arithmetic easily. So what the program did was to do a cartoon illustrated handbook, and in testing it, so it's about testing it to see if these high school students would easily understand uh, what is in a cartoon style handbook than the traditional style handbook, which means yes, a handbook that has those those arithmetics without cartoon being embedded in it. So so what they did was to designed two handbooks, the normal one and also the cartoon one. So what we did was to have this for 537 high school in so I mean this so this were in high school but in different schools, and we called for enrollment. Eventually we were able to see 537 eligible high schools who were actually in grade um grade this should be so let's think about it as the junior secondary school 3. So we had 537 of them who wanted to enroll in the program. This was in partnership with the authorities and all, so that we could get a larger number. So we had 537 in junior secondary school 3. They were the ones that the handbook was targeted at. So we wanted to test within um, within a month if this can change. So the duration of this test was within um, 1 month actually. So just to test the tool that was produced, and eventually when we were about to start, so the plan was to have a pre-test. So before they will be handed the books, yes, we had to do a pre-test. So what we're going to do is minus what we had at the pre-test minus what we had at the post-test, which is after the test. So before the test and after the test. And yes, 104 did not participate eventually in the test, so it means 104 dropped out. We had 433 that took part in the test, which is all the students in primary 3, right? So we now have to perform, we now have to randomize them, which in essence means that, they are already all eligible, which means that, yes, they have the same characteristics to an extent, but we have to do a simple random whereby, yes, you do a lottery. So in a lottery, none of us do know that. So they pick, you can actually use your Excel spreadsheet to do it now, but they did the real lottery, like picking a paper in a bowl. So it's either you fall into the traditional or you fall into the cartoon style. 216 picked for cartoon and 217 for traditional style and book. Immediately after we had test, we did that. And so 216 took the cartoon and style and 217. And for 1 month, they started reading the cartoon style, so in preparation for the post test, which is the test after they have finished reading. So by the time we would do the post test, yes, we had 8 out of those that received the cartoon style and book. Yeah, they didn't participate for one reason or the other, and you can think about it. Yes, their parents weren't around and they couldn't come for the post test and all that. Also, those that received the traditional style 17 did not also participate. Yes, for several reasons. And these are some of the things you get in this kind of designs. So and don't forget that I said this took a month. So now think about one that would be like a year. So 200 per day at the post. So this is what we refer to as, so this type of design is what you would necessarily want to think about as, yes, as an experimental design, right? So the goal is to measure the main difference between pre and post, right? So this is an example of what we mean by experimental design. So if you want to know the result, of course, yes. Those that actually read the cartoon style handbook actually did well in improved, got improvements in their numerical skills, much more than those that had the traditional style handbook. A few of those that were performing bad before, yes, they performed better. So and that was it. So So you could have randomized control trials, and I mean, this has a high internal validity. And what we mean by that is, yes, I mean, you raise a whole lot of bias. You can look at this, think about this, like we do not know where anybody will fall in. They all have equal opportunity to pass these tests. So um you raise bias in a way that is so high that you will not have bias at all. So the only issue with this is that, so imagine that this worked here might not necessarily mean that if you take it out of here and take it to another community or another school in another setting, that this might actually work. You might get another kind of result. But I mean, this is good because it's a short time that you have in delivering this 1 month. But think about a 1 month program. So many things, a 1 year program. So many things would have happened, and a whole lot. You might have gotten a whole lot of dropouts along the line. Um, so um, randomized control trials is actually called it's the gold standard, and that's why uh, I actually needed to put this in gold. It's the gold standard in evaluation. Uh, Everyone wants to do it because, yes, in impact assessment, it's the best way for you to actually get the impact of a particular program, and it has high internal validity, just like I said. Low bias, yeah, it reduces a whole lot of selection bias as much as it can. um, but I mean, it comes with its own problem as well. So you could so think about running that kind of a program for a whole year. So, and I mean, if you go to Poverty Action Lab, they've been doing a whole lot of randomization all across the world. Um, so you should check the websites. They've been participating in lots of randomized control trials all over the world, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. You could read about a whole lot of um, randomized control trials that they have actually carried out. So, and it comes with a whole lot of money. Imagine that you're targeting a community district. So it means you need another district if you're providing. So, for instance, the Girl Learning Child program in one of the case study, it means you will need to get another set of girls that you would, or another set of school that you will not provide that for example, the computers, you will not provide them, you will not provide them with libraries. So, and you have to make sure that you are monitoring the two schools, for example, from the start of the program till the end. So if it's a 4 year program, how long will you keep on monitoring and maybe saying you're collecting data? So I mean, so it's highly resource intensive. So that's why some people just test it in few months, in 4 months or 3 months, but you cannot actually do that for a 4 year time. You'll be spending a whole lot of money. It has ethical concerns as well. Yes, I mean, how would you? So, for instance, in my narrative on the on the children that were given lunch pack and those that were not given, for example, which I said here. So, if you're a parent, would you and your child come and say, "Oh, they didn't give me lunch pack," and it seems they're giving some other people, so there's a problem with that already. So, or if the government is trying to do that, like, oh, we'll give this state and we will not give this state because we're doing an experiment for 4 years or so. I mean, it costs eyebrow, even if the motive is actually genuine. Um, um, of course, you cannot do randomized control if the project has started. So, what that means is that it has to be from the beginning of the project. So if you look at this narration, yes, we already knew we are going to do randomized control trials at the beginning before giving the tools to the children or to the students. So from the beginning till the end, so for a 4-year project, it means that you will need to have the evaluators on ground monitoring, making sure. So I mean, a whole lot of things could go wrong in that way. So I mean, you can also think about it. So I mean, imagine that a whole lot of these numbers dropped out. Oh, well, this is 1 month, just like I said. Imagine that this is a 2-year or 4-year program. A whole lot of people might be tired and they go do some other things on both sides, actually. So, which means you lose out some people in the program, although you're supposed to be monitoring them. But I mean, so think about it that way. So that's randomized control trials. It's been done for evaluation. Currently, there's the popular deworming program in sub-Saharan Africa, even in Nigeria. I think we shared one of the reports in the one of the ones we were part of in the classroom. So you might want to take a look at it. Quite interesting to read. Deworming children with Mendazole, which is I can't remember that now. It was in 2018 or so. So you have a drug for deworming, and you have some pupils that are enrolled that will take the drugs. You have some that will not take, and this was always switched. So at one time there will be those that are enrolled will become non-enrolled in the program. So just to test what's working and what's not working. So I mean, so the other type is the pretest posttest design. You might have seen this. This is a little bit common. So in this, you would not have any control group. So in the pretest, don't forget, is another type of experimental design. So in this type, there are no control group in this. So which in essence means that yes, you might have not used these people that receive traditional style handbook. So it will only be cartoon style handbook. And also in the Jamboard, it means that we will not have this set of control group. Yes, we will only have those that we treated, right? So, but you will take data at the beginning and at the end in order to, just think about the changes that will be caused in such programs. So, so this does not require any control group. Only the treatment group is required. Yes, also the unit which you collect data, yes, could be at the individual level, could be at the community level, could be at the school level, could be at the PHC level. But you take data at the beginning of the intervention and at the end. So, which is the same for this. So there will be a pre-learning test. You give them the cartoon style handbook. When they finish, there is a post-learning test. Then the difference between the two, main difference, is what you now use as the impact of the cartoon style handbook that was provided to increase the numerical skills of the students. So this is mostly used, because yes, it costs less, so you're not thinking about any control group anymore. So and that makes it interesting for you. But it's important that yes, it has threat to internal validity. So in case of bias, so think about trainings and workshops that have been done. So this is how it's actually been done. So there's a test before the before the program starts, and there will be a test after the program starts. So if you are actually listening to me and in the classroom, it's almost the same thing that was done to you, right? So you might have completed the survey, and also that you will have another end-line survey when you finish. So that's an example of a pre-test, post-test design, in which, yeah, we expect to be to we expect that there might be a change, or there will be a change in the course. So the course might have added to the skills. What you didn't know before, you now know. So we will take data from you before the class starts and after the class, when the class has finished. But you can think about it like, oh, this works in a very small space of time. So in a short space of time, imagine that you've done it, you're doing this for 5 years, and you've asked those questions at the beginning of year 1. You're not thinking of year 5 to ask that question. What would have happened? The person would have lost memory. So history. So in terms of history, people can forget. So there's that bias of forgetting what the person said when you first administered the test. So that's the pre-test, which is here. So I mean, when you did the pre-test here, and you're now doing the post-test, which you're supposed to ask, the person would have forgotten what he told you here. So in order for him to give you a correct answer at this point, so that's a big challenge. So if you're asking, oh, what has changed? If the person's skill was at 0.5 before, you're expecting it to be 0.6, the person might have forgotten and say, oh, I'm 0.4 as at this moment. So people that use it to design a short period program. So like all these courses that is being done in universities, and also you can do that. There's a problem with testing, which I must have mentioned in testing people about what must have changed in a little period of time. Also think about the instrumentation, which is the data collection instruments that is being used. I mean, if we administer the questionnaire to you, perhaps we already know you already know who is administering it in a short period of time. So I mean, the response that participants or beneficiaries might give might not be genuine enough. Yes. In terms of mortality, which is another case, another issue with the pre-test, post-test design, which means that yes, people might fall out of the program. I already mentioned that also in the randomized control trials. So people leave out on the program, they would not participate. So for example, imagine that here over 100% left and did take the post learning test, then there's an issue already, which happens in real life. In the real sense of it, you see people not participating. I could remember the deworming program in I think in Oyo State in 2018 or so, where at one point the students, the pupils in the school, when there was a rumor that the mendazole that was used was causing them to vomit and all that. So I mean, a whole lot of them, some of them didn't show up at all in school anymore. Parents had to be withdrawing the school and saying, oh, we will not, on the deworming day, my child will not go for deworming and all that. So you could think about that as a huge challenge. So the difference here is there's no control. It's only the treatment group, and you would definitely do your test at the beginning and at the end as well. So those are the two types of, so you have two types of experimental design: randomized control trial and the pre-test post-test design. These two are the most used if you are talking about impact assessments. You want impact of a program, you want to understand how your program has led to the impact, then you need to think about this too as well. Another one that is, and don't forget, we say this, especially the gold standard. It has, yeah, I mean, it reduces bias to the barest minimum. So we say that it has high internal validity, followed by the pre-test, post-test design, and then we now move to the QuasiExperimental, and so the QuasiExperimental is almost the same thing as follows the same logic, the same thing as the experimental design, but the only difference is just that this randomization doesn't happen at all. You don't need to have people of the same characteristics. So, which means that you can just think about having a program in Maitama and also having it in Kochingoro and trying to find the difference between the outcome in both communities. So you do not randomize, you don't need to look for people of the same characteristics. So which then poses a challenge for QuasiExperimental, right? But I mean, because I said Maitama doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, I can just figure out a community that is just like Kuchinguru, and I mean, for people that are listening, Kuchinguru is a low income setting, low income community. So it's like you just having low income community versus so Maitama is has high income community members. So in this case, you will not necessarily want to think about having that kind of disparity. You just pick, oh, I need Kushingoro and Zuba. Both of those community have low income set of people, so I can go ahead and use them. So I do not need to do any random selection, which means I do not need to do a simple random selection. I do not need to stratify them. I do not. So I mean, you do not think about all that in QuasiExperimental. And yes, most times you would have a post test for both for the treatment group and the control group. So you would not have a pre-test. So that means that there wouldn't be any tests. So this test and randomization wouldn't be there. And I mean in QuasiExperimental now, this will be off the table. Oops. So these two will be off the table. So you would only have a post-test for the difference between the two. So I mean, some people have designed it in a way that yes, I would definitely have a pre-test. So some evaluators will put a pre-test, so just to increase the validity, the internal validity, to reduce the bias that might cause. So just for you to note that yes, it could be tweaked, depending on what you're thinking, depending on the art you're putting into this. So that's why we said monitoring and evaluation, or evaluation, is an art on its own. We've said it, there's threat to internal validity, yes, of course. So this can be used after an intervention has already been finished, yes, because we said you don't need a pre-test. So the program might have finished and you just take your control group and say, oh, I just want to test these two low income communities and see, okay, I already know community A has the program, has the treatment for the intervention, community B do not have. I can take both of them, let me ask them the questions I want to ask at the end of the program. So you could collect your data at the end of the program. So and I mean, it has no ethical problems because yes, you're not thinking of giving community A the treatment, and you're not intentionally not giving community B. So you're not doing that here. So you are just coming at the end of the program and trying to take these two communities and test them. That's quasi-experimental design for you. So let's move to the third type of design, non-experimental design. So this only focuses on, yes, what has changed between the start of the project and the end of the project. No control group is actually needed. Just think about, yes, can we know what has changed? Can we do questions can we create an instrument that can ask questions of, yeah, what happened at the start of the project and what is now happening now? So this is one of the straightforward kind of design that you can get, and we'll discuss just two of them. There's the ex post facto design, which is a survey design. Yes, the evaluator comes at the end of the program. Yeah, if it's ex post, you just come and design a questionnaire that can be used to collect data for what happened before the program started and what is currently happening now. So there's no control group. It is actually difficult for you to get an impact or to have to get a causal effect of that particular program. I mean, to be able to attribute that, oh, it is this program that made this to happen. So yes, so think about this. So it means that this is what will happen, which was actually the first. So this is in existence in the non-experimental design. Yes, if you want to explore what has happened in a program, this might be the best design you can get. And I mean, it's so totally cost efficient because data is collected just at once, and the result is stated also at once as well. So you can have the panel designs as well. And I mean, this has low internal validity. Of course, yes, you can think about bias in every way. It is only the person putting together the questionnaire or the instrument that will be used to collect the data that will try as much as possible to reduce the bias. But methodologically, it is vulnerable to different kinds of bias. There's the panel design, which is, yeah, I mean, you could think about this as also longitudinal design as well. So, which in essence means in a program, you just begin to collect what is happening in that program. So, if a program is 5 years, for example, we collect data every year. We're collecting data every year at the end of every year about the effect of the program. So we say that yes, you observe it for a longer period of time, could be 5 years, could be 6 years. Yeah, to a certain degree, because you're doing that, you want to remove bias, right? And that's not to say yes, there are no threats as well. This also, you will be incurring a whole lot of cost. I mean, imagine every year getting an evaluator to run evaluation, and I mean, it's also you'll be collecting data all the time here and there for you to make inferences and all. So you can also use this like every year collecting data and trying to know the effect within a period of time. So what it means is that instead of you doing this, so you would definitely have more graphs all the time. So every time you might have this, you might have your intervention like this, you might have it like this, and you do an average. So that's what most people do if you're using this kind of design. So interesting non-experimental, you could have the ex post facto design in which you collect the data one time, you do not have any control group, and your units could be your units could be even mixed, could be individual plus plus also the at the community level. So you could do that. So same thing as the panel design as well. And I mean, if you want to know more about designs, I mean, we have these three books that you can think about. They are all already in the classroom, so you can think about having some things to take a look at and read and have for yourself. So like I said, there's a task that is supposed to be completed for this, and the task is about you, yes, talking about your evaluation design for your chosen case study. For mine, it's actually 5, case number 5, which is the distribution of chlorine to households in Kiribati to allow them to use the chlorine to purify the water so they could have access to clean water, thereby reducing the cases of diarrhea in their community, and at the long run then reducing the death rates in Kiribati. So if I myself, so the question is that yes, you are an evaluator, and just to know that this is a follow-up to what you did for task 1. So what evaluation design would you use? Definitely I would, for my case 5, I would use the ex post facto design. And also, I mean, one other question, and I think this is also in your question, is think about in these designs. I mean, we've discussed 5 evaluation designs now. Which do you think people use the most, or evaluators use the most? So, which do you think evaluators use the most, and that is being approved by commissioners? So, it's something for you to think about. Anyways, we can have that discussion in the group. So, ex post facto design, which means that yes, after the program, after Waterways concluded the distribution of the chlorine kits, after they finished the radio program, which is a 5-year program, I will then, on the 6th year, I will then have this design. That's what it means. So if we say from which unit will you collect data? Yes, I'm going to collect it at the household level, and also collect data from key ministries, so which is at the government level, right? So this is all just for the purpose of this class. You need to write this in detail in your proposal. That's what it means. Who are the household level? Who are the ones at the household level? You need to think about that. 600 households. So so you're going to collect data from 600 households. That's what I'm talking about. So I can just change this 600 household in 4 different districts. So I mean, you need to explain this more, and yeah, you could say from 5 people in key ministries. So I mean, this could be a question. So you could say a questionnaire will be designed and also an interview will be conducted. Yeah, I mean, you could go deep. I mean, we've done data collection, maybe a semi-structured interview, right? So, I mean, you give a broader detail At which point will you collect the data? Of course, since you have said it's an ex post facto, right? Yes. It could be more specific about the year. Under what condition? Yeah, I mean, I do not need a control group. Um, um, we'll you could think about a sample, right? Like so here you could talk about sampling. Um, um, so I'm not going to talk with those. So this is just in response to this. I mean, you need a broader perspective. You need to write more. I mean, to get ideas, we have reports, we have terms of references that are inside that you can take a look at, um, which will be very useful for the work that you will do as you continue in this profession. So, I mean, this is just an overview of what you're supposed to do. I would hope that this is quite useful to you. Um, if you stumble on the video and you want to join the class, so feel free to check this website, the link, and register. And also, if you're looking for a group training, you can give a shot at training@cloneshouse.com or give them a call. Yes, this is a wrap on evaluation designs. We've discussed the evaluation design itself, looking at the causal model, which is that yes, before you can say your program has an impact, so you need a factual state, which is the state at which yes, the change really happened in your project, change in variable. And also that yes, you need that, and you need the counterfactual state. The counterfactual state is a controlled state, which is a state in which you did not provide the intervention for such program. The difference between the two is now your causal effect. And we move to different kind of different kinds of evaluation design, starting from experimental design, in which yes, you need the treatment and the control group, and yes, you also need to do a pre-test and a post-test for them, so which is testing both groups at the beginning of the program and also at the end of it as well, and that you can collect data at the individual level or the community level. So, but not necessarily both. Anyways, for experimental, you could so types of experimental is the randomized control trials and the post-test pre-test design. We already said the pre-test post-test does not have a control group, but it is that you do the pre-test and the post-test. So there is the QuasiExperimental, which uses the same logic as the experimental design, but in their case they do not necessarily. So in a QuasiExperimental, you would not necessarily have randomization. So you knock off the randomization, which is this. Yes, you do not need to randomize at all. So, but you still have the treatment and the control group. So sounds like a makeshift, actually, of makeshift of of the experimental group. Then you have the non-experimental, in which, yes, I mean, you just observe changes at the start and at the end of the project. And you could have the ex post facto designs, which collect data at one point in time. And yes, every other analysis and all is done at one point and the report is being given. While also you can have the panel designs, which, yes, it takes data for a longer period of time, could be every year in a 5-year program. So think about that. So, I mean, these are different ways you could think about your design. Yeah, I mean, if you need more information, please check out those references. There's some good books by so I mean, also about constraints, which we'll still talk much more. You need to think about the budget, time, data, political constraints which we face, which is quite important as an aspect of evaluation. That's why most times you might not be able to do an experimental design because there's a restricted budget available for evaluation. So you need to think about how you make your design so simple and you get the results that you want. And also that there's no time for you to wait for a very longer period of time for, especially for experimental, or doing longitudinal evaluation, which panel designs. I mean, it takes lots of time. Which in essence means you'll be using several resources. So, I mean, there's so many of these challenges, but at the moment, we'll pause it right there. That's the end of Unit 2. It's a pleasure having you listen again. Please don't forget to put in your comments, your suggestions in the classroom so we can have proper discussions as the classes go on. I wish you all the best in the course, and yeah, I'll see you in the other units. Bye.